About 10 years ago, when I was in high school, I fell for a guy 2 years my senior. At 16, we fell in love and eventually had a child. I left my family home and welcomed this new life into the world. My husband and I spent 10 happy years together before he suddenly passed away. My child and I returned to my parents' house, where my sister treated us coldly. However, the man she chose to marry was someone quite unexpected. Destiny-led love, a special someone. Can we really stand up to fate when we meet such a person? I had such an experience at 16. Now at 26, it's a story from 10 years ago. My name is Christine. I'm a single mother with 2 children, a 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. My life-changing encounter happened in my early high school days. That's when I met my destined one, Michael. He was a senior at the same school, and we crossed paths in the hallway near the staff room. That moment was indescribable. I turned around and he was looking back at me. It was as if time had stopped. In that moment, we fell in love. Michael said quietly, "It might sound strange, but I feel like it's destiny for us to marry." But to me, it didn't sound strange at all. Because I felt the same. I was just an ordinary 16-year-old, proud of my health, but in that moment, I felt like the protagonist of a novel. Michael was a brilliant student, destined for a national university. He suggested, "It'll be a marriage between students, but let's get married after you graduate from high school." Right after he said that, I discovered I was pregnant. It was an unforgettable winter in Michael's senior year. He chose to marry me instead of pursuing his studies, deciding to work for our family and the baby on the way. His parents, as expected, strongly opposed. His father, Bob, is an executive in a large company with considerable wealth, voiced his concerns. "Christine, you're only 16. What are your plans regarding high school graduation? You shouldn't be carried away by temporary emotions. It's important to consider the future more deeply." Then his mother also clearly stated her thoughts. "You could choose to marry after graduating from college properly. Marrying and having a child at this young age will bring many hardships. Considering all this, I'm opposed to the marriage." Then, Bob made a proposal. "Don't worry. I know a doctor who runs a clinic where you can handle this quietly, without anyone noticing." However, by that time, Michael and I had already made up our minds. We decided to elope. Now, as a mother, I can totally understand his parents' words and feelings. If I were in their shoes, I'd definitely oppose it. But back then, we couldn't think of any option other than raising our child together. I've never regretted that decision to this day. We left a letter for our parents, quietly packed our essentials, and left the house without anyone knowing, heading far away to New York. It wasn't a departure without a plan. Michael had sought help from a contact he'd known since middle school through the internet, a developer of a smartphone game app. Mr. Webb was surprised. What? Michael was still in high school. And his girlfriend too, and she's pregnant? I can't believe it. He was astonished. The one we turned to for help was Mr. Webb, a man in his 30s. Mr. Webb continued talking, albeit confused. "I knew you were young, but I thought you were at least over 20. If I had known you were high school students, I honestly would have stopped you. But now that it's come to this, I can't just leave you alone." He put his head in his hands, but then let us stay in his apartment, which also served as his office. Furthermore, he agreed to be our guarantor for renting an apartment. However, there was one condition: once things settle down, you must contact your parents. So, Michael and I sent a postcard to our parents without revealing our current address, with just one line, "We're doing fine. Please don't look for us." Michael began helping Mr. Webb with game development. "What? You came up with that idea when you were still in middle school, Michael? That's incredible. To be able to program like this, all self-taught." Mr. Webb was impressed. Apparently, Michael had been involved in game development for some time. I took on cleaning and cooking in the combined office and living space. It was a new challenge for me, and it added color to our daily lives. Mr. Webb showed his heartfelt gratitude. "I really appreciate it. I've been relying on eating out, convenience store junk foods, and sometimes instant noodles. I've often missed having a home-cooked meal." Hearing his words, I felt that my experience helping my mother cook at home was being put to good use here. But at the same time, it also brought back memories of my parents and sometimes made me feel down. I was realizing anew the weight of being married and having a family. We registered our marriage and officially became husband and wife. We didn't have a fancy wedding or a luxurious honeymoon, but we bought a small cake and had a modest but warm celebration. We had a daughter, and we sent a postcard with a happy photo of the three of us to both sets of parents. It became a tradition to take a family photo every New Year's and send it to our parents. The job at Mr. Webb's office wasn't high-paying, but it was fulfilling. Mr. Webb had promised me, "If this app hits the market, I'll make sure to give you a proper bonus." True to his word, 2 years later, we received a bonus beyond our expectations. At that time, I was pregnant with our second child, and the joy was immeasurable. The next child was a boy, and our family grew to 4. Our days were busy but filled with happiness. Perhaps, the reason we were drawn to each other was because of the chance to meet these children. He loved our 2 children deeply, and our days were filled with immeasurable happiness. However, about 10 years after leaving home, in the spring, a sudden event occurred. Michael suddenly collapsed. At that time, he was 27, I was 25, our daughter Mina was 8, and our son Jack was 6. He was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, a serious illness. Michael quietly began to speak in his hospital bed. "Christine, I'm really sorry. I've had a secret that I couldn't tell you for a long time. Actually, I received a bone marrow transplant from my brother before entering high school. Even knowing the risk of relapse, I chose to marry and have a life with you. I'm truly sorry." I gently held his hand and replied, "It's okay. Even if I had known that fact, I would have still married you without a doubt." Contact was made with Michael's parents and brother, and they hurried to the hospital. In the hospital room, with the family gathered, Michael expressed his deep gratitude and apologies. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry for being a son like I am. Brother, thank you for being a donor. These past 10 years, I've been truly happy, all because of Christine and the kids." With tears in Karen's eyes, she answered, "The postcards you sent always looked so happy. Every time I saw them, I felt relieved." Upon hearing these words, she gently grasped Michael's hand. Michael then left his final words for his family. "Christine, thank you so much. Please take good care of the kids. Mina, Jack, I'm sad I won't see you grow up, but thank you." Those were Michael's last words. With grief, but also determination for the sake of our children and for Michael, I vowed to become stronger. I made a new resolve to raise our children well. Afterwards, we held a small but warm funeral, inviting only Michael's parents, brother, and some colleagues from New York. Michael's parents offered for us to live with them, but I had made my decision. I plan to return to my parents' home. I've caused them so much worry over these 10 years, and now I want to start living there. Hearing my decision, my in-laws showed understanding. "If you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out to us," Bob further suggested. "Instead of Michael, I'd like to help support the children's upbringing." This offer was a great relief to me. Although I was willing to work, I was anxious about being able to support 2 children with just my income, having only completed middle school. I accepted the help from my in-laws and promised to bring the kids to visit during school holidays. Then I returned to my parents' home. I had already informed them on the phone, but upon my return after 10 years, they welcomed us warmly. Suddenly having 2 lovely grandchildren like this, I'm truly happy. You've been through a lot. You did well. Hearing this, I couldn't stop my tears. However, the only one in the family who remained cold and distant was my sister. "How dare you come back so shamelessly? After you left, we went through a lot here," she said bluntly. My sister, 3 years my senior and always beautiful and smart, often looked down on me and teased me since I was young. When I left home, she was attending a prestigious local university and was affected by rumors spread about her 16-year-old sister running away from home. Now 29, she had been working at a renowned local company for 7 years and seemed desperate in her marriage hunt. Do you really think someone like you, a middle school dropout with 2 kids, can raise them properly? Coming back to your parents' house now is just a nuisance. She uttered these harsh words. Since I left, she had been using my room as her own space and openly expressed her displeasure at having to vacate it for me and my children. Her attitude was evident to my kids, who never opened up to her. My elder daughter, Mina, inheriting a strong personality from somewhere, sometimes made sharp comments to my sister. "Auntie, aren't you going to get married?" Mina often asked her provocative questions. My sister, disliking being called auntie. "Can you stop calling me auntie? Suddenly being called that is confusing." She would show her anger even towards Mina, a child. But Mina, ever calm. "But you are an auntie, aren't you? What else should I call you?" she would retort. My sister would then fall silent. The children had to transfer to a new school and, despite initial apprehensions, fortunately adapted quickly and went to school happily every day. During summer vacations, they spent a few days at Michael's parents' house, having a great time there. Michael's parents and his brother Ken adored the kids, taking them to various places and buying them things they wanted, which the kids greatly enjoyed. When I visited Michael's family home, his parents and brother Ken would eagerly ask about Michael's time in the city. I would often lose track of time while sharing memories of Michael. Ken, unlike Michael, was a sturdy man with only their eyebrows looking similar. While Michael was gentle and kind-hearted, Ken was more active and strong-willed. He was good at making conversation and often brought smiles to our family. His cheerful nature provided great comfort to us, who were reminiscing about Michael. About 3 months after returning home, I received some unexpectedly harsh words from my sister. "You come back with 2 kids and no job, just like a parasite. It must be because you only finished middle school," she coldly said to me. My mother, pained by the situation, came to my defense. "Christine has been contributing to the household. Since you started working, you haven't brought a penny home, have you? Can't you be a little more kind to your sister, who has lost her beloved husband and is wounded in her heart?" she admonished my sister. Surprised, my sister responded, "What, really? How is Christine managing the living expenses without working?" It was no wonder she was surprised. Right after I returned home, Michael's parents had deposited $5,000 into my account for child support. They promised to send the same amount every month. I said, "I can't accept such a large sum." I tried to decline, but Bob spoke kindly. "Money is something you can never have too much of. Christine, instead of working, we want you to cherish the time with the children, for Michael." I couldn't argue with their words. So I use $1,500 monthly for the expenses of family, keeping only the bare minimum of $500 for myself, and saving the remaining $3,000 for the children's future. Only my mother knew these specific financial details. She gently said, "Besides, Christine helps a lot with the housework. She works harder than me in cooking and cleaning." But my sister retorted, "Who cares about that? I'm getting married soon, so I don't care about housework." Her argument was somewhat hard to understand. As she was about to get married, I thought she should learn some cooking skills. "Kate, if you're getting married, maybe you should learn a bit more about cooking. Learning from mom would be good too." This seemed to infuriate her, and she vehemently countered, "I don't need your concern. I'm attending a cooking class. I don't need to learn the cooking of a poor family." My mother, outraged by her words, "Well, sorry for the cooking of a poor family," expressed her anger. My sister's matchmaking efforts were successful, and she happily announced her engagement to a doctor 3 years older than her. When she shared this news, she approached me in a rare good mood. "Hey, Christine, I hate to say this, but I don't want you to come to my wedding or the reception. Everyone around here knows you ran away from home, and I don't want to have to explain your return. You don't need to come to the family meeting either. Being a middle school dropout and a single mother, it's a bit, you know." She said this, which felt like a typical way for her to show off. Both our father and mother were angry at her comment. But my sister, having secured her marriage to a doctor, was brimming with confidence. "I do want Dad and Mom to attend the ceremony, but as I'm becoming part of his family, I don't care what others think," she declared defiantly. It seemed only a matter of time before a family conflict would arise. I tried to intervene. "Dad, Mom, don't worry about me. Please, no family fights. But my sister responded coldly. Humph, what a goody two-shoes you're pretending to be. She snapped and went back to her room. At that moment, Mina commented quietly. Auntie has a bad personality. Both father and mother just sighed deeply. About a year after I returned home, my sister got married, and I was somewhat relieved that she would be leaving the house. 10 days after her wedding, she suddenly called me. I just got back from my honeymoon and I'm bringing you some souvenirs. Actually, I wasn't going to, but my husband insisted. I was surprised and asked. But I thought I wasn't supposed to be part of your wedding or reception. To which she replied. I accidentally slipped up during the honeymoon. I thought it would be difficult to keep it hidden forever, and now that I'm married, it's fine. Apparently, she had embellished her situation to make a good impression on her husband before the marriage. That day, our entire family was prepared to welcome my sister and her husband. The doorbell rang, and when Mom opened the door, there stood my sister and her newlywed husband. However, the moment I saw her husband's face, I couldn't help but exclaim aloud. What? Ken? I exclaimed in surprise. My sister, a bit shocked by my reaction, said, What's with this sudden outburst? Don't speak so familiarly to my husband. This is my husband, Ken. This is the first time you guys meet, right? Oh, don't mind of her. She's just a sister who can only bear kids. She said, laughing. These words made my mother's face fall, and my father sighed quietly. Everyone in the family was puzzled by my sister's insensitive remark. But Ken, ignoring my sister, looked at me intently and said, Ah, so you're Christine. He murmured. The man in front of me was none other than Michael's brother. What did you just say? Ken asked my sister in a low voice. My sister, unable to hide her irritation, retorted. Ugh, she's so stupid and presumptuous. Christine, go back to your room before your stupidity rubs off on us. But Ken spoke calmly. Christine won't be doing that. Apologize. I could see his clenched hands trembling. What? To that extent? But if you say so. Christine, apologize right now. Ken firmly said. The one who should apologize is you. My sister was confused, and Ken continued in a stern tone. Apologize. This woman is my brother's wife. My sister, still confused, repeated. What do you mean? Your deceased brothers? Just then, Jack exclaimed. Uncle! My children had met Ken several times at Michael's family home and had developed a close relationship with him. They had enjoyed fun times at the places he took them, growing very fond of him. Ken spoke sternly. You said it yourself, didn't you? About your embarrassing sister who ran away at 16 to have kids. Her husband died early, and that's why she came back home. That man, he was my brother. My sister gasped in shock. What? I had no idea. Why wasn't Christine at the family meeting? Why wasn't she invited to the wedding or the reception? He confronted my sister. She replied, confused. Well, it was difficult to say about having a middle school dropout and a single mother as a sister. I thought to myself that if I had been there at the family meeting, this might not have happened. Ken continued speaking. Sure, Michael and your sister may have been reckless, but Michael spent those 10 years happily before he passed away. That happiness was because of Christine and the children. You're insulting my brother. My sister, with tears in her eyes, apologized in a frightened voice. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I had no idea. Ken continued. Just now, the way you spoke to your own sister. I'm losing confidence in staying with you. My sister desperately tried to make excuses. Don't say that. I can change. Please don't leave me. She couldn't hide her panic at the thought of losing her newly married husband, an elite doctor. But Ken said calmly, I need some time. Bob, Karen, Christine, I'm truly sorry for this situation. Let's have a talk again later. Saying this, Ken gently pulled away my sister, who was crying and clinging to him, and left. We, the family, were stunned, unable to find the words to say to my sister. My mother sighed deeply and said, "Her actions have led to this, but this is really serious." My sister just kept crying, and I even felt sympathy for her usually strong-willed self. She wasn't completely bad, after all. "Christine, I was wrong. Please, talk to Ken for me. Please, help me." She begged me in a tearful state, different from her usual self. Wanting to help her, I decided to visit Michael's family home the next day and explain the situation. Michael's mother, while pouring tea calmly, said, "Our sons and you have a really strange fate, don't they?" I replied with a wry smile. "Ken, don't worry about me. My sister may be strong-willed, selfish, and show off at times, but she's not a bad person at heart. As her sister, I wish for her happiness. Please, give her a little more time." After saying that, Ken unexpectedly confessed, "I know I shouldn't be saying this, but one of the reasons I decided to marry your sister was because she reminded me of you, Christine." I was taken aback and exclaimed, "What?" Everyone else was equally surprised. "For the past year, I've been looking forward to you and the kids coming here. But knowing how much you cared for my brother, I decided to give up and chose to marry." I responded, still bewildered. "But I don't think my sister and I are that similar." "No, you are similar. In your smile, the tone of your voice. That's what I liked and decided to marry her, but maybe it was a mistake. I should have waited for you to forget Michael." Ken expressed his regret. I quietly replied, "I will never forget Michael." "What?" he said, surprised. "I won't forget Michael," I stated plainly. Then Ken said seriously, "But, Christine, you're still young, and the kids are fond of me. I want to make you all happy, in place of my brother. I'm sorry, but to the children, Michael is their only father. I appreciate your kindness as Michael's brother, but I can't have feelings beyond that." Then, Karen intervened. "Ken, you're wrong. No matter the circumstances, proposing to the sister of your newlywed wife is beyond common sense." Ken fell silent and nodded his head at her words. Bob added sternly, "This boy has always been a bit selfish, failing to consider others' feelings." With that, Ken seemed even more disheartened. I couldn't help but say, "Michael was a truly kind person. He never got angry or spoke ill of others. But seeing you stand up to my sister, I felt relieved. I didn't care about the words towards me, but I couldn't stand the insult to Michael. I am grateful for what you did then." Hearing my words, Ken looked disheartened and muttered, "I guess it was no good after all." Karen stated firmly, "Of course, it's the right thing. If you divorced now, Christine and the children would be treated unfairly." She seemed to be considering my position, and I felt grateful for her words. Bob also provided support. Ken is strong-willed and a bit selfish, so they're well matched. "Christine, just forget about it and let them be happy as a couple." With this, Bob helped diffuse the crisis of my sister's potential divorce. Karen then said with a kind smile, "Christine, don't worry. I'll make sure to straighten out your sister's personality." I was a bit surprised by my usually gentle Karen's firm declaration. My sister turned to me and said, "Thank you, Christine. I'm really grateful for everything. I'm sorry for all the trouble." Saying this, she went back to her new home. The sister who once seemed ready to cut ties with our family now frequently visited home, bringing our favorite cakes and treats. My mother-in-law Karen, she looks gentle, but she's actually very strict. My sister would complain about her days at her in-laws. True to Karen's words, it seemed my sister was working on changing her personality. My mother, a bit coldly, said, "A strict Karen is just what she needs." Yet, it seemed my mother was inwardly happy that my sister didn't end up divorcing. My sister and Ken, both strong-willed, occasionally had intense arguments, but somehow managed to get along. Frankly, I hadn't expected my sister to get along smoothly with someone who would suddenly order her to apologize, so they seemed somewhat suited for each other. Later, I received a call from Mr. Webb in the city, saying that Michael's last game project was completed. I downloaded it to show my children. Mina, Jack, this is the game your dad made. I showed them the screen. In the game, siblings were the main characters, named Minalia and Jackie, modeled after our children. Dad made this? Mina asked in surprise. Is this me and Mina? Jack said, excitedly staring at the screen. The game, filled with Michael's love, was so moving that I often found myself in tears, unable to progress easily. Upon clearing the game, a message saying, "Thank you," appeared on the screen. It was Michael's last message. I thought to myself, thank you. I was truly happy to have met you.